that was a moment that it was like a sucker punch to the gut. And so I knew that I needed to just stop and pause and be like, okay, clearly I've been running the show, God. Even though I've been saying I've surrendered to you or I want my business for you, he's like, yeah, you haven't. And so then when I was sitting with him on that, it really was, and asking him, okay, well, what are you actually asking me to do?
All right, so welcome to the Freedom Business Builder podcast, and we have Andrea Anderson on. Thank you for joining us today. I want to know, Andrea, who are you and what is your mission?
Yeah, so I am here to come alongside established Christian business owners who they're mostly service providers and really help them to build a business that is streamlined, sustainable, and profitable. And I do that as an executive business coach and profitability strategist.
Awesome. How did you know you wanted to become a coach?
It was all the Lord. I didn't know that I wanted to become a coach until it was a time of prayer. So I'll take you all the way back to the early 2000s. It was actually during nap time. I remember it because as a mom, when we have moments of nap time, it's like, yeah, it's really good, right? So I actually had a different business at the time. It was an organizing business that I had with a friend. We were just in the real early stages of it. And I was sensing there was more going on for people or more present than just they didn't know how to organize their stuff. And again, I know this was just the Lord, where the idea of going into a space, making it look really good, organizing it, but going back to chaos potentially after I left or we left, that wasn't sitting right with me. So in that time of prayer, I was asking God, how do I actually help people on a transformative level? Because it's like, I don't want to go in these spaces, Lord, and it just goes back to chaos. And I'd never really had an experience like this before with the Lord, but I heard almost audibly the phrase life coach. And again, this is in the early 2000s. So the coaching industry was virtually unheard of. I hadn't heard of it. I was like, okay, God, if this is you and not me, because I'm like, what's a life coach? Like, am I just making this up or what?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was like, if this is you, not me, Lord, then I'm going to Google it. It'll come up. And it did. So that's really what started me on my coaching journey. I got my certification, but I took a long pause. At that moment where I heard that, I was pregnant with our third child, but then we also had a fourth child. So it's like fast forward a number of years, my youngest was going into kindergarten and the Lord just kept nudging me. He's like, I called you to be a coach. So that's when I really started to enter into the coaching industry and business.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. So before you started your coaching business, you were doing an organization business with your friend. How did that start? Was that just conversation, or how did you want to get into business?
I don't even really remember how we landed there. It was what I do know, what I can tell you is that the Lord has made me naturally entrepreneurial. Like I like to say I had my first 2 sales at 6 years old because I had created some artwork and that included crayons and cotton balls. And I went to my mom with one of the pictures and I said, Mom, do you like this picture? She's like, yeah. I said, would you like it? And she said, sure. And I said, okay, that'll be a penny. So she bought it. And then I did the same thing, same sales pitch, did it to my dad, but I charged him 5 cents. So it's like looking back, and I think for all business owners, you can look back and see kind of glimmers and glimpses of probably that entrepreneurial spirit somewhere. There's something about what he's calling you to now that is connected to your childhood in some way. So again, always have been entrepreneurial. I hadn't always had my own business. I actually followed a more traditional path of going to college, getting a 4-year degree, starting in the marketing communications field. But then when I started a family, priorities started to shift. And I wasn't passionate about getting freelance work in marketing communications, but it must have been a conversation that I had with this friend. She wanted to do an organizing business because she had a background in architecture and design. And I was like, well, why don't we do it? It kind of was like, I think I probably was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll do it with you.
Very cool. So how did you end up starting? Did you just do research and just went on your own? Did you hire a coach or? What'd you do?
Looking back, because I think I kept some notes from that, or I came across them in the past year or something. I'm like, we were doing all the right things to start. But once I got that word from the Lord about life coach, I just went in that direction. And I didn't, essentially, I said to my business partner, okay, I'm going to focus on this instead of considering coaching would very much be part of organizing. I think at the time it was just like, I don't really see how this all fits together totally. It would have helped to have a coach or somebody to be like, okay, yeah, you're not actually thinking about this. Right. But really where and I've had Etsy shops, like I've started a number of different businesses just because again, that's that entrepreneurial spirit, the creative piece of me coming out. But it's really not until I came to coaching that I really started to take it seriously in the way that it needed to as a business owner.
Okay. So then what did that look like? How did you start taking it serious?
When I knew that the Lord is saying, okay, it's time, you have to do this coaching thing now that your youngest is going into kindergarten, eh, because it had been a while since I had done anything like that. uh, But I had a health transformation and I was seeing a friend talk about being a coach for Beachbody. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. It's kind of, I'm like, they call their distributors coaches. It's like, I'm like, it's kind of like, the thing, even though I know God is like, that's not what I told you to do, Andrea. But anyway, that's how I started. And there was a lot of lessons I learned, a lot of what not to do, but that really was the, it did help me lean in and realize I do need to get serious about building a business.
It's cool. And that's really funny too, how the Lord does that, because I've done that as well. Like, I'm doing this thing now, and that fits into what you had for me, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
still working with the people you want me to work with. He'll still be faithful and like use it, but it is kind of funny how we can do that. Okay, so then what did you do next once you finally figured out the route that you were going to go? And then what did you do?
Is I had stayed with health coaching for several years. In that health coaching business, I had entered into another partnership that I thought was going to go really well because we were both believers, both had similar views, even on an approach to health, like we're committed to excellence, all of that. But instead of the partnership working really well, it actually went in the other direction. Even though I was trying hard for that not to happen, I know there was the intention to try and make it work, and it just kept falling apart. And so I was having some words with the Lord about how that went because it completely caught me off guard. And when we had finally decided to end that partnership, her business started to take off more. Mine kind of felt like it stalled a little bit. And that's what I was talking with God about. In that conversation, I felt like I heard him say to my spirit, like, she's walking in her favor. You aren't. And that was a moment that it was like a sucker punch to the gut. And so I knew that I needed to just stop and pause and be like, okay, clearly I've been running the show, God. Even though I've been saying I've surrendered to you or I want my business for you, he's like, yeah, you haven't. And so then when I was sitting with him on that, it really was, and asking him, okay, well, what are you actually asking me to do? It was the business coaching piece. A lot of the clients that he brought to me as a health coach were entrepreneurs. And ultimately we were talking about the business and everything. So that brought me to my journey as a business coach today.
What advice would you give new business owners just looking to start out in any kind of business? What do you feel like you've learned that you could give that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of lessons. So for Christian business owners specifically, sit with the Lord, be very clear what he's asking of you and believe it. What I really believe is if we always stayed perfectly surrendered to the Lord, if we were always perfectly aligned with the Lord, we would be perfect. Jesus is the only one that actually managed that. It's very easy for us to take back control and to start calling the shots. And so for Christians in the marketplace specifically, it's that consistent going back to him, asking him to, as like that heart check, are you building the business he called you to build, or are you building some version of it? The other thing is before investing in like all the stuff, like there's a lot of tools and apps and all of that. Perhaps even before investing in a coach or support, do research. Now, I really believe that if you invest in a coach or advisor or somebody like that, they're going to help you. They're going to help smooth that process and help you stay on track with what you do need. What I have noticed about a lot of new business owners is, and I can see why this happens, like to be an entrepreneur, you have to have the vision. You have to be excited about the vision. You have to see the possibilities or you're not going to go anywhere. You're not even going to get started. However, what I noticed is that it's so easy for us to go from, I see the possibilities and like helping people and the time freedom or like whatever we're picturing it's going to look like, to believing that it's therefore going to be easy. And I'm here to tell you, business is not easy. It can be simple. I do believe it's meant to be streamlined. It's not easy. And when you're a Christian, the Lord is going to use it to sanctify you, which is not a comfortable process. There's going to be a number of challenges that are going to come up at different stages. Sometimes they'll hit more at the very beginning stages. Sometimes it might be the middle. Sometimes it might be when you're further along, but you are going to be challenged. And what I sense is a lot of business owners, especially with online and how easy, I really believe it is easy to start a business because it doesn't take really any discipline. It's like, some people don't even pay for the LLC, which I don't recommend. Do your legal and tax due diligence, know what your obligations are certainly before you start taking money. But there's really no discipline in starting. It can just be, I have this idea, I want to go sell something. And that can get you into a lot of hot water. So I believe doing research, understanding, again, legal, tax requirements. So it actually goes back to counting the costs. Like you need to understand what the costs are that come with starting a business. And I don't want to say this as discouragement, but just as a reality check. Because I see all too often this idea that it's going to be easy or it's just going to happen overnight or whatever. That is actually why I believe a lot of especially small businesses, end up closing in the first 3 to 5 years because the owner didn't count the cost of what they were getting into, or they didn't do their research. And that's the other thing too. If you watch Shark Tank, or if any of you who are listening that are watching Shark Tank, like sometimes you have people coming on Shark Tank and they have this idea that they're clearly excited about, but also it's like, okay, but does anybody actually want that on the level that it's a viable business model, right? So it's like you research to test your ideas. Do people actually want what you think they want? You need to get in the room and talk with your potential clients because you need to hear what they actually want, how they talk about it, why it's important to them, because it's all connected to your marketing. Otherwise, it just makes growing your business that much harder.
Yes, I think that's such an important piece that is definitely not, I feel like almost common knowledge. I feel like not a lot of people say that. And so not a lot of people do that. And they just end up, I have an idea, I'm going to sell it. And then
Mm-hmm.
usually crickets, and they wonder why and they have no idea. And then that's where hope deferred can come in, and disappointment. And it's really only just because they didn't go and talk with their customer first. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And understanding your market. Like because I had an Etsy shop too, like I would see this on there, right? You see some people maybe saying, "Oh, that's really cool." And then there's like this mass production mode you go into only to realize, okay, it's like so niche that it's actually not making you money, so it's a hobby. Like be very clear what's a hobby or more of
Yeah.
a hobby like some fun spending money versus I believe when God calls you to grow a business, it is meant to be profitable and provide you with the resources that, everybody's in a different place, but it needs to be more than a hobby.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So you said something really great too. How do we practically not take the reins back from the Lord, in our business? What do you coach people on for that?
hmm So I call it the control reflex in helping to calm that. Really, it's a process. On the one level, it'll sound like, of course that makes sense, but it's really through the conversation and the training that I've had as a coach where that's really the work that we do. So it's doing a lot of asking and listening. That's the crux of it. But then what I'm in the way that I listen and been trained to listen and trained to ask questions, what we start exploring, what I'm looking for is based on the actions someone is taking and what they're telling me and what I know of the Lord, like, are they in or out of alignment with him? Like, where is their alignment? Where is there not misalignment? So I also, it's called somatic response. So also paying attention to how their body's responding, even sometimes how mine is, because I'm more empathic. So I can pick up usually on tension and then experience it in my body. Because I believe that misalignment shows up in your body before it's ever going to show up in your bottom line. It's the Lord's way of letting you know, but you have to be able to, you have to recognize it and pay attention to it and then understand what it means, and I believe one of the reasons that for a Christian business is challenging and is meant to be challenging is because it's so easy for us to put God in a box and like think formulas. I know I've caught myself out so many times on this thought that, well, I'm building this business for you, God, or because you called me to the business, God. I didn't decide that somehow, therefore, again, it should be easy or I should be getting certain results or whatever. And he's like, sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's skill, and sometimes it's surrender. So we're looking at all of those things. And yeah, it really is individual in helping them navigate the nuances of how God is leading them, how they know that it's his voice versus their voice versus other voices.
That's really good. Because, yeah, I was just thinking of that too. So someone can still have like all the practical, they have the marketing down, they have all the messaging down, and yet be out of alignment and not see the fruit and the growth in their business. So that's a great way to put that. Now, going back to, since you are also, you're this awesome business coach and a mom, and I'm sure other things, how do you do all of that? How do you manage all of that?
I'm at a stage in my life where the motherhood side of thing isn't, I would say, something I need to navigate in the way that I would have when the kids were younger. Well, again, going back to those earlier years, I chose not to pursue a business and really grow it while my kids were little because back when they were little, so my youngest was born in 2009, like the idea of the online business space, I mean, it was just, we've come like so like warp speed, right? From even where that was. I think Facebook might have been a thing. Even I know blogs were, the platforms, the technology were in a completely different space.
Yeah.
I know people had the vision of the ability to build a business online, but I kind of sense that it probably wasn't until like 2015, 2016, like somewhere in that era where the technology was there for people to more easily, like mothers, right? Or caregivers, to more easily run a business from home. And after I'd gone through my initial coaching certification, I was like, again, online business was not really an option at that point. And I didn't like the idea of stepping outside the home to try and get business. That was just the choice and the conviction that I had. I know that the Lord doesn't lead every woman that way. And some women he equips to be able to do all the things. Like, that wasn't me. So my kids now, so I've got 4, 1 girl, 3 boys. So my daughter's almost 23 and then my youngest is 16. So parenting at this stage, completely different.
Yeah.
I still play Uber mom sometimes. Honestly, I don't know how I would have done this when they were little. We did have a friend come in to nanny when I was getting my certification and did need to do some coaching, but I don't know. It just would look different.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when you first started, the online space wasn't really big yet. How did you go about finding clients?
Mm-hmm. So really in that stage, it was more the organizing business. So we had done workshops. No, I'm trying to even think like what networking we would have done, but I do remember us. We went to Babies R Us. I don't even know if Babies R Us even exists anymore, but we went to Babies R Us and did like when they had You could have vendors set up. So we were looking for in-person opportunities. And the funny thing is, I think with AI, I know with AI and with, especially with 2020 and the amount of online meetings people have, like people are craving the in-person. And I feel like the Lord is even drawing me back to like, how are we cultivating community that can build an audience even in person? So it's kind of funny, like retro business building. But there's something that can never really replace that in-person relationship. To me, I look at as online as it just allows you to do more if that's what God has called you to, or it can make it, in some respects, it can make it a little easier. Like certainly I can coach my clients from anywhere in the world, as long as they can speak English and as long as they can meet me in my office hours, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't have to go anywhere to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I love that almost that in some scenarios, we're kind of trying to take it back and trying to go back to the way before technology and AI and all the things. While it's a great tool, but it is, yeah, we're missing that in person. That brings me to, I know AI is pretty controversial sometimes. As a business coach, you see a lot of business owners. What is your take on AI and using it for your business?
like so many things in this world, it's really how you use it. And as Christians, that's something for us to navigate personally with the Lord, because what might be acceptable for one person wouldn't be acceptable for someone else for different reasons. I think there probably are some like hard and fast ones, like we're not using it for things that God would overtly say are sinful, right? But then the nuances of that, and certainly in the business space, yeah, that to me is really, well, how is the Lord leading you? What are the convictions? I personally have found it is a huge time saver on a number of tasks. It's very helpful for me with brainstorming. It's helpful in the writing process. I don't just give it like, say, write me something on this. Like, I believe that's not in integrity. However, what I find it in the process of having it help me write, it's refining my voice. It's helping me to actually, I believe, become a better communicator because of how I engage with it. And it helps me to just get my thoughts out of my head and so that I can actually look at them. So it does speed things up, and there's different ways that I'll use it to help with clients. And again, it takes some of the heavy lifting away. Again, some people might say that that's not necessarily a good thing to speed it up. But again, I would go with what is the Lord saying? How is he leading you? Be focused on your lane. And again, as long as it's not overtly in contradiction with God's word, then other people are going to will have different views on it and may use it in different ways.
Yeah, that's so good. And that brings me back to, how do you navigate business as a Christian entrepreneur? What do you do in the day to day to really grow your business and work on your business, but still keeping God at the forefront, keeping God the CEO?
Yeah. So one practice that is consistent for me, and I rarely vary from it, just because I really believe it's needed, not from like a checklist thing or from like a legalistic, but the fact is, if we aren't grounding ourselves in the Lord first thing, meditating on at least one scripture, or getting in the word or praying, my question to a Christian who doesn't do that is, well, then how do you know you're in sync with God? Like, if that's because it's clear in scripture, Jesus took time to step away, right? He went out early in the morning when it was still dark, and he removed himself from the distractions around him. And I really believe it's because he knew what he was facing. He knew what each day, what he would have to navigate. And I believe it was, well, also to model to us, like, hey, this is something good to do, but also like having that communication with the Father to know probably what his marching orders were for that day. So it's like, if we're not sitting with God and asking, Lord, like, what am I accountable to you for today? One question I like to ask as a frequent question is, ask the Lord is, what's at least one thing, or by the end of the day, what am I accountable to you to have accomplished? And it doesn't mean he's going to download this massive list. Sometimes it's one thing, right? Because he knows exactly what's coming down the pike for us moment by moment. And so I find that to be a very grounding practice, but it's not just a once and done. It's also, the best thing is throughout the day, because I find it's so easy for us to get off and running. But to go back to the account of Mary and Martha, he's like, sitting in stillness, sitting with me, that part will never be taken from you. Like, it'll never be seen as laziness or slacking off. I mean, unless you're going into that being like, I just want to ignore this, right? But if it's intentionally sitting with the Lord, asking for direction, connecting with his heart, asking him to examine yours, he's a God that can do anything. He'll multiply time, he'll multiply effort. So it's leaning in and trusting him for that. So it's anchoring my day with that, but it's also trying to do my best to have a running conversation with him throughout the day. Some days are better than others. Some days, like, I just kind of go off on my own, and then I'm like, but then I really notice it. I really feel, I'm like, oh yeah, that day there was just something that was off about it, something missing. And just God is like, yeah, but you know what? Just come back. Like, I'm right here.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder. Uh, Even me, I need to work on that. So what do you feel like is the next step for you? Where are you going with on your mission?
hmm Yeah, so this was something the Lord started to sprinkle awareness around probably a year and a half ago, but then he really started impressing this on me at the end of last year. And in order to grow my business, because it's service based, and I really believe that the best way for someone to get results with me is one-on-one, because you have and I've seen that even for myself. Like, the way that I've always grown the most is in one-on-one conversations. Groups have a place and groups are helpful, but there's nothing like having one person completely focused on you. And especially with business, because there's so many pieces and parts, and you can't just show up one day. I mean, I guess unless you have built it to only show up one day, but generally there's things you need to pay attention to, especially starting out, right? Every single day. So I really believe that the ability to offer people one-on-one coaching, I feel that's the best model. And then having some group to supplement. And so in order to do that, in order to scale my business, actually, with that model, like, I would reach a cap, and I'm like, Lord, like, how am I going to grow? Because I don't want to have these massive groups where people just feel like a number in the room. Because I've heard people, they don't like that. They don't get anything out of it. And so I know the only way I can scale is by duplicating myself, like hiring. But the other piece that he really started highlighting is that the way that he has raised me up to coach, it's a combination of my training. I know it's a combination of spiritual gifts he's given, and among other things, that the way that I'm able to spot misalignment, or the way that I'm able to listen and then ask questions, is very rare in the marketplace, in a way that is able to spot, again, where someone is in or out of sync with God. Because I've asked people who are not where they want to be, well, have you had anybody helping you figure where you're in or out of alignment with God? And the answer is like always no. I'm like, well, that's a problem. And I've had clients tell me that the way that I coach is very different than other people that they've worked with. So I'm like, okay, if I'm getting this as feedback, this is telling me there's a gap, and it's that solution to to something I need to do for my own business. So he's going to have me create a certification program so that I can train people on how I coach, and kind of like pulling together the years of experience, the training that I've invested in, all of that into one spot.
Oh, that's exciting.
Mhm.
Would it be certification for business coaching or for life coaching or both
That's a good question. It's something I'm still praying through right now. For
right
sure,
now?
business. And then there would be a business side of it, because I learned, like, in going through coaching certification, and I've taught coaching certificate for another coaching program, that you can say you want to become a coach, you can get trained for it. It doesn't mean you know how to grow a coaching business.
Yeah.
So I know
Yeah.
there will be that component in helping the students who come to the program, helping them to make sure they're staying aligned in how God is inviting them to grow their business. What I don't have clarity on right now is is it only for business coaching in consulting space, or do I start there but then it gets expanded, or is it just for everything? It's kind of like I feel like there's three options that I need to weigh. One of the things I plan on doing, and to go back to when you're a new business owner or something like this, you're further along and now you have a different offer or something, a different kind of business, is to go back to research. So I'm in the research phase right now. And one of the things that I need to get a handle on is I know there's a problem in the business space with people not coaching to alignment in God. What I'm not sure about is that showing up, say, in health coaching, in relationship coaching, in financial coaching, to where it's really hindering the results that people get in the same way that I'm hearing that is happening in the business coaching space. So once I start having more of those conversations, I think the Lord will use that to be like, okay, it's mostly an issue in the business coaching. So like, let's start there, and then it may draw other people in, but we'll see.
It's awesome. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We'll be excited to see that when that comes out. And I do want to leave the space here just to anything that you would want to say to a new Christian business owner or aspiring Christian business owner, anything you want to leave them with, what would that be?
Yeah. So if God has called you to it, if you know that the Lord has called you to business, then keep coming back to that place and trusting it and resting it. Also, you need to surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up. Like if you don't have family or friends right now, go and find your tribe, because going back to what I was sharing earlier, it's not easy. There's so many moments where you can get discouraged, especially when things are not going in the way that you expect. You also need a tribe of people around you who understand sometimes that roller coaster ride that entrepreneurship is, who can also help you troubleshoot that. To tie in some of the in-person thing, I would strongly encourage you to look for networking groups of people, of like-minded people. So I have that for myself in person as well as online. I feel like the online space can make it easier to identify, oh, these are my people, but also there is something about the in-person piece of it. But yeah, don't think that you can do it alone. You're not meant to. And the things that you don't know how to do, that's where you get to ask other people, and you'll find it just shortens your learning curve and you get to link arms with them.
I love that. So I will have all of the links that you provided in the bio, but where would you want them to reach out to you or go to learn more about you or connect with you?
The easiest would be my website, because that's where it can bring links to all the other places.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrea.